were just trying to think of topics to discuss, and we came across attachment and how I guess I get it needs a bit more clarity with respect to the Buddhist teachings and the Western definition of attachment and the Buddhist definition of attachment, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people really have kind of an adverse response when they hear that attachment is bad, because attachment is perceived as kind of a normal part of life in the West. So, you know, in the West, there's kind of a complex people have around religion telling them what to do. They really don't want to. They don't want any kind of religion setting limitations on what is perceived to be like natural behaviors and natural states of mind. So the idea is it's just natural and we're all sinful, and or not, we're not all sinful. I guess that's the exact opposite of what people say. We're all kind of flawed and we have our pluses and minuses, and it's just roll with it without kind of introducing guilt into it, you know, and attachment is normal. So, and of course, another thing that people think about when they think about attachment is they think about romantic love and stuff like that, or attachment people have to their parents, or children, family. So the idea that that's something that's in some way associated with suffering, because from the Buddhist point of view, attachment is the origin of much of our suffering. People react negatively to that. So I think that it's really important to understand how attachment causes so much pain in our life, because attachment is feeling incomplete as a person because you don't have something in your life. So you feel incomplete because you don't have the right car. That's kind of a trivial example. Or you feel incomplete because you don't have enough money. And so all of your energy is directed toward achieving, toward getting that money or getting that car or getting that person. So in that sense, when you do that, your whole life is kind of in a limbo. You don't really live in the present moment. You don't really live in your life. You live in your future. You live in your you live basically in an illusion of a future. So you've set up already two illusions for yourself. The first illusion is a sense of being incomplete without this person or this car. And the second illusion is that you'll be complete when you have that person in this car or whatever. And so your whole life then is kind of, you're like a whacking ball being whacked behind these two illusions. And the only relief you can get is by kind of wholeheartedly pursuing it, and then having suffering as a result of setbacks and so on. And so the problem with that point of view is because you perceive the object as the origin of suffering and the origin of pleasure. So you perceive that object, that car, that person. You know, a person of course isn't an object, but it's like it's some outside power that is going to be that's going to provide salvation from your suffering. And the way you are not looking at it is you don't look at the mechanism that's at play, the mechanism of your mind that's in play when you're pursuing that thing. Because what's really causing you suffering and what's causing you pleasure isn't the object. It's not the car you're pursuing or the absence of the car. It's your mind that's pursuing the car that's causing you pain. It's your mind because it's untrained and because you're not being a master of it. You're not mastering it. Your mind is an attachment mechanism. It doesn't have to be, that's not its true essence to be an attachment mechanism, but that's what you've trained it to be. So instead of focusing on that object, you have to focus on that process of the mind, because what happens is that if you train your mind to pursue an object, guess what happens when you get the object? It starts to pursue another object. So again, you get into another cycle of attachment and dissatisfaction. And often, one of the first one of the noble truths is that life is suffering. That's the way it's translated. That translation is not entirely correct. Life, the word for suffering, I think, is dukkha in Sanskrit. I believe or maybe it's Pali, but basically the word is dukkha, and the way that word translates literally, I believe, is a broken squeaky wheel. So if you think about a squeaky wheel on a cart, like you're pulling a cart and the wheel works, so your mind works, and it gives you flashes of something that you perceive to be happiness. It gives you flashes of happiness, flashes of fulfillment. So it's a wheel that's functioning, but it's just not oiled up. It's functioning on a subpar level. And in order to and the way we try to fix that wheel, the way we try to relieve that suffering, is we just say, well, the problem is that I'm not in the right place. I have to go to the point B, I have to go to that city, have to go there to fix it. But you don't have to go anywhere, you just have to stop and look at it and fix it. So the other thing that people have with attachment is, of course, people say, well, attachment can't be bad because love is attachment. And here you have to really look at love, because love is a really dangerous thing. I mean, people kill themselves every year. There's probably a few people who killed themselves in the period while we were making the video and the period while you were watching the video that probably killed themselves around the world over love, because their love was focused on the attachment quality of it. So anytime we love a person, there's a mix of wishing for that person's well-being, but there's also an aspect of it where we want that person to play a specific role in our lives. So, if you have a son, you want the son to be a doctor, you want him to cut his hair, to dump his girlfriend, to marry a nice person of the same ethnic group or something. So you have a specific outline of what you want your child to be, for them to be the child that is perfect. And as a result of it, people cause themselves a lot of pain. A lot of parents don't talk to their children, children don't talk to their parents, because each one of them have a specific ideal attachment to a specific version of that person that doesn't exist. Alternatively, people get fixated on people of the opposite sex or people of the same sex, depending on what swings their boat. And then they have a specific role that person should play in their life, like a role of a savior, or a role of something like some sort of a plug that's going to plug you in and complete you in a perfect way. And then that person feels uncomfortable because they're being placed in that position where they're supposed to be basically almost like a religious savior of some sort. And that's unrealistic, and it causes the other person pain, and it causes you pain. And if the person doesn't want to play that role or doesn't feel the same connection with you, then sometimes people harm them. A lot of people, one of the most frequent, when you have homicides or when you have killings, most homicides happen not between strangers but between family, within people that they know, and often emotions are involved. So that's why, from a Buddhist point of view, love is wishing the person or the thing, whoever you love, wishing them well, wishing them to be happy. That's it, period. Not wishing them to be happy in the way you want them to be happy, not wishing them to be happy in a specific way that you perceive as the best way for them, but wishing them to be happy, period. And when you look at your love or your attachment to other people that you have, it's a mix of wanting them to play a certain role in your life, wanting them to be a certain way, and wishing them to be happy. And what you do as a Buddhist is you filter that again and again and again until hopefully you'll get to a point where you either mostly want them to be happy or you just want them to be happy. So in that kind of mixture, the less attachment you have and the more pure love you have, which is just wanting them to be happy, the better off you'll be, because you're not burdened with this burden of expectation and trying to stuff that person to whatever shape you want them to be stuffed into. And they feel happier around you because you accept them for what they are. So, and then you also have the clarity to actually guide them, because because in that sense they'll be able to see that you're not trying to control them, you're not trying to use them or for them to be a certain way for you. You just want them to be happy, and whatever advice and guidance you give them, they might listen to it more because it's more to the point and it's not mixed with attachment, which people hate.
Mm.